First, new rules on how long you should stay home if you come in contact with somebody who has coronavirus.
The state health department is cutting the recommended time you should quarantine from 2 weeks to as little as 1 week.
Mary Jo Ola explains the change and the reason behind it.
Wisconsin state health leaders are following the Centers for Disease Control and shortening the recommended 14-day quarantine for some people exposed to COVID-19. Health officials say there are 2 new alternatives for people who had close contact with someone infected with the virus. Starting Monday in Wisconsin, close contacts who do not develop symptoms can end their quarantine after completing day 10 of their quarantine without testing, or after completing day 7 of their quarantine and receiving a negative test result that was collected within 48 hours of the end of quarantine.
The CDC crunched a lot of numbers and tried to estimate what is the residual risk if we shortened it to 10 days. And the result was it was about 4 or 5%, which is riskier than about 1 per 1,000, or essentially 0.
This change is based on new scientific evidence and takes into account the difficulty of a 2-week quarantine.
It's much less disruptive for people and communities and employers to do it, so it might be worth accepting some risk. The other thing is that it might be easier to get people and communities to comply with quarantine.
In a TMJ4 News Twitter poll, 82% of people did not think the change will encourage compliance. 18% think it would.
If we haven't been listening at this point, then we're probably not going to listen, unfortunately.
Because of my health and my age, I would take the full 14.
Despite the change, health officials stress a 14-day quarantine is still the safest approach due to the virus's incubation period. Even with these changes, DHS says people must still monitor symptoms for the full 14 days. If a person's symptoms develop after quarantine ends, they should isolate immediately, contact their healthcare provider, and get tested. In Milwaukee, Mary Jo Ola, TMJ4 News.